Quantum healing, the future of medicine.
So this is technique that's used in this particular kind of treatment is tuning someone into sensations in their body. And sensations are not feelings or emotions. They're very innocuous. They do not trigger you. In this therapy, you do not need to talk about all the details of what happened to you. We don't care about any of that stuff. We care about getting rid of it and releasing it. That's the main thing. And all those memories, patterns, holding on to things so dearly that was so negative start to naturally just fall away, and you're fine with it because you're not feeling it anymore. You want to actually at this stage just let it go and release it out. And because you're doing all of this, and you also now through the therapist being tuned into sensations in the body, you can actually start treating yourself. One of the beauties of this therapy is that, and why I say that people that use intuition, is that you don't want to be controlling or trying to figure out where all these blockages are. In this arena, you want to be totally on task because there's a pattern that went in this person's body that is absolutely unique. We could go through exact same trauma. We would internalize it completely different, and our pattern would be completely different because it depends on the individual's personality and their sensitivities and how they process things. So everyone in that regard is very, very unique. So if I come in just with intuition, and I'm very intuitive, so if someone comes and they would say to me, well, do you know where my issue areas are? I can pretty much tell you where 1 or 2 or 3 of your main issues are, especially the main one for sure. I would be able to tell you. But it's not the way the body works. When you use super intelligence, it doesn't operate like that. It doesn't work on anything with the mind, which the mind is very limited. Really, the mind is just a computer. It's nothing more than that. It's plugged in through the neurological system to quantum energy. But if you're not recognizing that, really doesn't mean anything. The mind then controls the quantum. The more spiritual people get and the more they meditate, or the more of a master they become at spirituality, the opposite starts to happen. The quantum is the one that controls everything, not the mind. The mind becomes a companion, but without that realization and without that higher frequency operating, people think here that the mind is everything. There's lower mind, higher mind, but it's still mind. And mind is all about me, it is the ego. We all have ego, especially at this level. Ego is something that has absolutely no place in the healing world. That is why so many people we see trying to fix other people using all this ego fail dramatically. And they don't make very, very good healers, let's say. The moment ego steps in, I would say any kind of higher healing dissipates. And sometimes worse than that, makes it worse. So this is a very interesting thing. When we bring up sensations, one of the ways that a person, a client of yours, can locate the patterns, there's always the end of the pattern, the start of the pattern, and then where's the next place, and where's the next point of the pattern, and where's the next point of the pattern. And it is not the therapist that is directing that. If I'm using intuition, I will start to mentally decide, where the next step of the pattern is. So we don't do that. We do the opposite. We let the client tell you where the next step is, where the next point in the pattern is that needs to be dissolved and released, which is a fascinating process. As I worked with it, I knew intuitively where the main issues were, and I was usually correct. But the body did not release like that. It did not go to the main source of trauma or where the main issue was. It would very rarely on the first or second session would it even remotely go to that area. It would rather go to the extremities and release from there. So it's a much gentle way of doing it than some person using their my mind and deciding where the issue was and possibly being right in the middle of a pattern and completely screwing everything up. Can't go into the middle of a pattern. It needs to be done in a very gentle, orderly way. There is a pattern, meaning there's a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it goes. What you do is you plug the client into their own quantum energy, which is very easy to do. Once people get it, it doesn't take long at all. And you ask them, tell me where I need to be placing my hands. You tell me. There's a process that you teach them of how to locate where the next step is, and they will do that and give you the next step. But because it's so highly accurate, I'm not missing steps. And my mind is, let's say, as the therapist, is not even in the picture at all. I sort of stand back and become a spectator, and I am controlling only from this perspective that we want to see how fast or how slowly someone is releasing. Everyone is different in that way. If you're releasing too fast, you could go into purging, which is, diarrheas and vomiting, and that you don't want that. On the other hand, you want to see whether you need to speed them up, maybe. Sometimes you often have to inject some energy into their body. So it's not a location, but it's injecting energy so that they can usually that will occur in the first 2 or 3 sessions, where they can then start to release a little faster. You'll sort of help them release, because sometimes people will get a feeling of this negative energies coming out of their bodies. Sometimes it'll be like water. Sometimes it'll be like thick mud or lava. They'll describe it as very slow moving, very thick. Those people often need a little bit of help initially to exacerbate that release, make it move a little faster. There are places you're going to come to that is so embedded and so deeply emotional that it won't remove. It will not want to come out. And there's techniques that you can work with the client on etheric surgery, where you can go in and actually, it's a very fascinating process, but you can go in with the client. We go into that location that is just refusing to budge. Usually these areas are very intense, dark energies, usually very compacted to very small, lots and lots of anger and rage resulting with those locations. But they do need to come out, and they do need to be released. So sometimes we have to go in and do a little bit of etheric surgery to give it a way out. It's so deeply embedded in there. So we do that too. But the process is that the client is feeding you the next location and the next location and the next location, because the quantum super energy, super intelligence is feeding it to the client since it's in their body. Quantum energy knows everything. So it'll feed the information to the client. The client will feed that information to the therapist. The therapist will then go in and work on that area, but it's absolutely nothing to do with feeling it myself or where it is or using mind whatsoever. I do not use mind. I am only using it to make sure the client stays very safe and balanced during the sessions.